Have you ever wondered why love always feels like a battlefield, even when no one is fighting? Why your heart chooses the same person over and over again, only in different disguises, each time hoping this one will finally stay? Understand. Fix what someone else once broke. You call it chemistry, destiny, maybe trauma bonding. So I call it a shadow. Your unconscious, still haunted by the wounds of your childhood, reaching out through every kiss, every argument, every silent dinner at the edge of a collapsed connection. And yet, you don't see the pattern. Not clearly. Not yet. You are not loving the person in front of you. You are loving the memory they awaken. You are not trying to be loved. You are trying to be seen by the ghost of a mother who didn't know how, or a father who was never really there. Every "I love you" is just a whisper into the past. Did I finally earn your affection? Am I enough now? This is the wound that guides your desire. And so you recreate your parents in every lover, not because you want them to hurt you again, but because deep down, you believe that if you can just fix them now, then maybe the pain will finally mean something. But what if I told you? Healing doesn't happen through repetition. It doesn't come by rewriting the same story with different names. What you call love is often just the unconscious reenactment of unfinished grief. You are not choosing freely. You are being chosen by a wound that has never been acknowledged, only projected. And until you see it, until you dare to walk back into the darkness where it began, you will confuse suffering with intimacy and call it fate. This is not just psychology. This is alchemy of the soul. And the gold you seek, peace, wholeness, freedom, will never be found in another. It must be unearthed from within, where your forgotten child still waits, in clinging to illusions shaped by pain and survival. And yet, you resist this truth. You tell yourself, my relationships are different. I've moved on. I'm in control. But are you? Or are you still the child hoping that this time, someone will stay and love you into safety? I will not give you answers, only keys. Keys to doors you've refused to open. Keys to rooms you've sealed with denial and coping. What happens if you follow me through them? If you stop blaming the present and dare to confront the source, the patterns won't break themselves. The ghosts won't leave on their own. But if you're ready to see what lies beneath your need to fix others, then listen, truly listen. Because the part of you still trying to heal your parents is the very part that's keeping you from ever being truly loved. There is a fracture within you that does not bleed. It hums. It vibrates silently beneath your choices, coloring the way you see others, how you interpret their silences, and why you crumble so easily when someone walks away. You think your heart breaks because of them, but that's never been true. The break occurred long before this relationship, this disappointment, this betrayal. The pain is older than your adulthood, older than your first kiss. It was planted in the soil of your childhood, in the silent spaces where love should have lived but didn't know how. You learned early on that affection had rules. Maybe you had to earn it. Maybe you had to be quiet to keep it, or smile through pain to deserve it. And that lesson became a spell, cast so deeply into your unconscious that now, as an adult, you cannot separate love from suffering. You are drawn to what feels familiar, not what is healthy. The wound has become the compass, and like all deeply embedded symbols of the psyche, it repeats itself in a loop until it is made conscious, until it is named, until you stand still long enough to say, this is not love, this is repetition. You are not alone in this. I have seen it in the eyes of countless people who come to me, weeping over a lover who abandoned them, a partner who couldn't love them back, a relationship that always ends with the same echo, why am I never enough? And yet, they are asking the wrong question. The real inquiry is not why did they leave me? It is why did I invite someone who would? The answer is as cruel as it is liberating, because the child within you still believes that if you can just get it right this time, if you can make this person love you, then it will undo the original pain. But the psyche does not work that way. The wound is not healed through repetition. It is revealed through repetition. It is your unconscious screaming through patterns. Look here. This is where it still hurts. And you, unknowingly, obey. You choose lovers who are emotionally unavailable because one of your parents was. You tolerate disrespect because somewhere deep down, you believe that love and humiliation coexist. You stay, not because you're weak, but because the child in you is still hoping to be rescued by the same figure who once wounded them. Let us be clear, this is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. You were not the author of your first pain, but you are now the one holding the pen. And every time you let an old story direct a new chapter, you are reinforcing a prison that was never of your making, but has now become of your choosing. The bars are made of memory, yes, but also of meaning. Meaning that has not yet been questioned. Patterns that have not yet been rewritten. And so, what must be done? First, you must dare to question the premise that love is earned, that you are broken, that your needs are too much. These were never truths. They were merely adaptations. Beautiful, tragic, necessary adaptations to survive a reality where your emotional needs were too heavy for the hands that held you. But you are not there anymore. And yet, part of you still is. That's the cruel irony. The body grows, the intellect matures, but the emotional body remains frozen at the scene of the original abandonment, still waiting, still pleading, still organizing its life around the hope that someone, anyone, will finally see you. This is the unconscious at play. This is the shadow, the part of you that manipulates your desires without your awareness. Jung called it the unlived life of the psyche. The part that you repress, forget, or deny, yet still governs your fate, and until you bring it into the light, until you give it form, it will appear outside of you as destiny. As failed love, as emotional chaos, as heartbreak, again and again and again. So I ask you, not as a therapist, not as a philosopher, but as a mirror of your own soul, when you look into the eyes of your lover. Who are you really looking for? Is it them? Or is it a parent you could never reach? Is it love or is it redemption? These questions are not comfortable, but they are necessary. You cannot heal a wound you are still defending. And if your entire concept of love has been built on the need to heal someone else, you have never actually loved. You've only tried to repair. You've only reenacted a drama that was written in your nervous system long before you had words to describe it. And your partners, they are the actors, unaware of the script you handed them, forced to play the role of your unfinished story. You call it passion. I call it projection. You call it chemistry. I call it memory. You call it love. I call it the cry of your inner child, echoing through the bones of your adulthood, begging not to be forgotten. Every person you've ever loved was a mirror, not of who they were, but of who you still are. And that is the cruel brilliance of the unconscious. It uses other people as reflective surfaces to show you what you've buried, what you've suppressed, what you've refused to confront. You believe you're falling in love with them, but in truth you're falling into yourself, into the depths of an unresolved bond, a silent contract written long ago with the caretakers who were supposed to be your first home, but instead became your first confusion. And what is love if not the most sophisticated theater of the psyche? You do not merely choose your partners, you summon them. The broken child within you sends out signals, subtle and invisible, attracting precisely the person who can replicate the old emotional atmosphere. Not because it is comfortable, but because it is known. And what is known feels safer than the unknown, even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts. Because your nervous system does not prioritize happiness. It prioritizes familiarity. Even if that familiarity is abandonment wrapped in tenderness, even if that warmth always turns cold, do you see now? You are not just loving, you are performing a ritual, an ancient one, a reenactment of the earliest moments your heart encountered the world and learned what it meant to be close, to be wanted, to be left. And each lover becomes the next priest in this ritual, unknowingly reenacting your inner mythology. You place them on the altar of your unmet needs. You pray they will stay, fix, see, touch the exact wound your parents left behind. But no one, not even the kindest soul, can reach that depth unless you first acknowledge the grave in which your love still lies buried. And yet there is something even more hidden, something you've refused to admit. You are not just trying to heal your parents, you are trying to become them. Unconsciously, you model their emotional posture. You adopt their silence, their moodiness, their withdrawal. You punish your partner with the same tools once used against you. This is the shadow in action, when the victim becomes the perpetrator, not out of cruelty, but because the psyche recycles what it cannot repair. And so you oscillate between roles. One day the abandoned child, the next the cold parent. You call it confusion. I call it identification with the wound. It is difficult, I know, to admit that love has never been about the other person, that the intensity you feel is not intimacy but echo, that your longing is not for a future, but for a past that was never completed. But until you see this, you will keep confusing chaos for connection. You will keep mistaking emotional volatility for depth. You will call it passion when it's really unresolved grief playing dress-up. You will call it soulmate when it's really a trauma pattern wearing the mask of fate. And what of the one you claim to love? What of their needs, their wounds, their story? This is the part no one dares to speak of, because in trying so desperately to be healed, we often forget that the other person is not a tool, not a bandage, not a mirror for us alone. They are whole too, and broken too. They carry their own parents in their bones. And when two wounded children fall, in love without awareness, they do not build a sanctuary, they build a battleground. Each one screaming at the other, heal me, choose me, fix what they broke, but neither can. And both leave more scarred than before. Do not confuse emotional intensity with spiritual depth. Do not believe that breaking open means you've found your soulmate. Soulmates do not arrive to complete you. They arrive to shatter every illusion you've built about what love is. They confront your fantasies. They force you to abandon the fairy tale. They make you look in the mirror and say, this was never about them. This has always been about me. That moment, when you realize the other is not your savior, but your reflection, is the beginning of transformation. True healing begins not when someone finally loves you the way your parents couldn't, but when you stop needing them to, when you release the fantasy, when you look at yourself, weeping, begging, clinging, and say, I am enough, not because someone else proved it, but because you finally stopped outsourcing the validation of your worth. This is not the end of love. It is its beginning, because now, finally, you can meet another as they are, not as a replacement, not as a projection, but as a sovereign being walking beside you, not filling your void but sharing your path. No longer a priest in your ritual but a companion in your unfolding. But this only happens when you walk back into the dark cave of your memory, into the empty rooms of your childhood, into the places where your love first broke, and sit there. Without distraction, without performance, without blaming anyone else, just you, your truth, your tears. This is the initiation, and most run from it. Will you? You are not in love, not yet. You are in repetition, you are reenacting. You are projecting the unmet gaze of your mother, the silence of your father, the aching emptiness of a house filled with noise but no listening. Your adult relationships are not free, they are reenactments. Reenactments of moments that were never given closure, of lullabies that were never sung, of doors that were always just slightly open but never wide enough to feel safe. And the one you call partner. Now, what role have they inherited without knowing? Are they being asked to soothe your fear of abandonment? Are they unknowingly stepping into the role of the one who once disappointed you? Are they loving you, or merely defending themselves from the ghosts you've unleashed upon them? This is the hard truth. Most people do not fall in love with others. They fall in love with emotional scenarios, with a psychological stage set long ago. The players may change, but the script remains the same. This is what I meant when I said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Love without shadow work is just a play without awareness. Beautiful, tragic, predictable. You must ask yourself, what am I really looking for when I say I want love? Because many say love when they mean security. Many say connection when they mean control. Many say companionship when they mean protection from loneliness. But love, real love, is not a balm for your wounds. It is a mirror held so close to your face that it burns. It does not promise to keep you from pain. It promises to show you what pain has made you believe about yourself. When you enter a relationship carrying the silent burden of needing to be completed, seen, healed, you do not offer love. You offer a plea, a demand, a contract written in invisible ink. You say, "I love you," but what your inner child whispers is, "Please don't leave me, please see me, please undo what they did." And your partner, if unaware, responds not from their adult self, but from their own wounded child. And soon, the relationship becomes a conversation between two abandoned souls wearing grown-up masks, and the mask is seductive. The fantasy of wholeness is powerful. You want to believe this person will fix everything, that they will love you in the way your parents should have, that they will touch the places no one ever touched, not with their hands but with their presence. But they can't. No one can. Not because they don't want to, but because the wound you carry is not of the present. It's buried in the psyche, wrapped in time, encoded in your nervous system like a forgotten hymn sung in a language only your unconscious understands. That is why relationships often feel like home and hell at the same time, because they awaken both your longing and your fear. You want closeness but fear being smothered. You want affection but fear dependency. You want to trust but fear betrayal. These are not contradictions. They are echoes of the original confusion when your developing self tried to make sense of an environment that gave love conditionally, intermittently, or not at all. You must stop looking at your relationships as evidence of your failure or unworthiness. They are not that. They are the maps, the mirrors, the signs. And every time a connection fails, it leaves behind a fragment, not of shame, but of clarity. And if you are brave enough to gather those fragments, to look at the pattern instead of the people, you will begin to see something extraordinary. The wound has always been calling you back to yourself. That is what healing is. Not a return to innocence, but a return to truth, to awareness, to the moment when you finally stop asking others to give you what your inner parent must now provide. Because there is a parent still within you, the one you've been waiting for. It is your mature self, the version of you that is no longer a child, that has the power to reparent what was neglected, to hold what was dismissed, to speak the words your mother never could, to provide the safety your father never knew how to give. And this inner reparenting, it is not poetic metaphor, it is a revolution, a rewiring. It means sitting with your feelings before demanding that someone else fix them. It means learning to self-soothe without manipulation. It means giving yourself permission to be angry, sad, joyful, terrified, without shame. Because when you can hold your own emotional complexity with compassion, you no longer need someone else to do it for you. That is when love changes form. It is no longer need-based. It becomes a sacred exchange between two sovereign souls, not to heal each other, but to see each other, to walk together, not to complete, but to witness, to become mirrors of growth, not of pain. But that can only happen when you stop dragging the past into the present, when you stop asking your lover to be your healer, when you stop trying to rewrite your childhood through the language of romance. The wound is not your identity, and love is not your therapy room. It is your classroom, your sanctuary, and your test. Are you ready to stop performing, to stop pleading, to stop hiding your inner child behind the mask of the adult lover? Then sit with this. The relationship you crave will only appear the moment you no longer need it to save you. You're not broken, you are bound. Bound to the idea that love must hurt to be real, that relationships are meant to heal wounds rather than to share presence, that suffering is the toll you must pay to be worthy of affection. But this is not love. This is captivity. It is the unconscious repeating itself through longing disguised as devotion. And until you stop chasing healing through the hands of another, you will never know the taste of real love. Because real love does not ask you to bleed in silence, to earn your place, or to carry your past like a curse hidden in your smile. Let me ask you something no one dares to say aloud. What would you become if you stopped needing to be healed? Who would you choose if your heart was no longer trying to fix what your mother broke or what your father abandoned? Would you even recognize desire that isn't born of pain? Would you know how to receive peace without turning it into chaos? just to feel something familiar. This is where the soul speaks, not in longing but in stillness. When you strip away the projection, the repetition, the desperate craving for someone to finally rewrite your origin story, there is a silence, a terrifying, holy silence. That silence is your liberation. That silence is the moment you stop being a seeker of love and begin to be its source. Because love is not found, it is remembered. It is not something you fall into. It is something you return to once you stop running from yourself. I will tell you something that may feel like heresy in a world addicted to romance. You do not need a relationship to be whole. You do not need another person to prove that you are worthy, and the deepest love you will ever experience will not come from someone else's hands. It will come from the moment you sit alone in the wreckage of yet another failed story, and you do not abandon yourself this time. That moment, when you stay, when you breathe, when you refuse to numb or escape, is the birthplace of your truth. Because what you seek in others has always been your own reflection, hidden behind the mask of need. You wanted to be chosen. Then choose yourself. You wanted to be held. Then hold the part of you that still trembles. You wanted to be seen. Then turn inward and see the forgotten child you left behind every time you called someone else the one. You see, we do not heal through others. We awaken through them. And every heartbreak was a teacher, every betrayal a revelation, every silence a mirror. You were never being punished. You were being shown the exact place where you still abandon yourself. And now, if you have the courage, you can end the cycle. Not by closing your heart, but by opening it differently. By choosing from presence, not from pain. From vision, not from history. This is the moment when love ceases to be a strategy and becomes a sanctuary. No longer a battlefield of unmet needs, but a ground of co-creation, where you no longer say, "Heal me," but "Walk with me." Where intimacy is not entangled with survival, but infused with awareness. Where the other is not your savior, but your mirror, your witness, your companion in the art of becoming. And that requires solitude, not loneliness, solitude. The sacred space where you meet yourself without distraction, where you hold the grief that no one else understood, where you mother yourself through the nights that once left you empty. Where you learn to be your own father, firm, present, protecting. This is not regression, this is maturity, the kind of maturity that no age grants, only awakening. And so I leave you with this question, not to answer, but to live. If you stopped trying to heal your parents in every relationship, who would you become? Let the silence respond. Let your body feel what your mind has buried. Let your tears fall, not as weakness, but as recognition. You are remembering something ancient, something sacred. You are not here to repeat your childhood. You are here to redeem it, not by rewriting the past, but by refusing to let it define your present. This is the end of the wound. This is the beginning of love. And now, in this final silence, I ask you to pause, not to understand, but to feel. The words have stopped, but their echoes remain. The story is told, but the meaning is still unfolding within you. What you've just witnessed is not a teaching. It is a mirror. And mirrors do not offer comfort, they offer truth. And truth, when it is finally faced, does not shatter you. It liberates you. There is no shame in having loved through your wounds. There is no weakness in having begged to be seen. That too was part of your becoming. But the time for reenactment is over. The child within you no longer needs to cry through the mouth of your adult self. The pain no longer needs to speak louder than your presence. You have walked far enough in circles. Now it is time to step forward, not into someone else's arms, but into your own life. If you felt something stir in your soul while listening, it wasn't the story. It was the memory of who you were before the wound, and who you still are beneath the armor of roles and expectations. Do not let that memory fade again. Do not go back to sleep. Let it burn softly in you like a candle in the cave, guiding you out of repetition and into awakening. You were never meant to heal your parents. You were meant to heal yourself. And in doing so, stop the lineage of unconscious longing that passes, like an unspoken curse through generations. This is not a burden, it is a gift. You are the turning point, the one who sees, the one who dares to love differently. So if these words touched you, if this truth resonated deeper than logic, then stay with me, not as a follower, as a companion. Share this video with someone who still confuses pain with love. Leave your story in the comments if you feel the pull, because your voice might be the echo someone else needs to awaken. And if you choose to walk with us to explore the shadows, not with fear, but with reverence, then subscribe. Not as a gesture, as a declaration. I am ready to love from wholeness, not from hunger. This is not goodbye. This is the beginning, and I will meet you again in the next story, in the next silence, in the next question you never dared to ask until now.